Hey guys! Today I'm going to be doing another wrap-up so soon after my last wrap-up, which I'm really happy about because the last wrap-up had been like 4 or 5 months between the second and the third one. Way too big a gap between wrap-ups. It made me so self-conscious because it's like I haven't read anything at all, but I have like 1,000 TBR books that I need to get to, and okay. Before I get started, I just want to apologize for any yelling you hear in the background. My mom is trying to put my handicapped aunt to sleep and she's just fighting it right now. So there may be some yelling in the background. I will try to cut out as much as possible. But to start things off, I read 18 manga series. Or, no, God, 18 manga series, that'd be a lot. I read 18 manga. Here's the first batch. This is volumes 10 through 19 of Prince of Tennis. I mentioned in another video, probably my last wrap-up video, that I've actually been reading like 1 to 2 mangas while in the bathtub, and that's pretty much how all these were read. The next stack is a little different. Here's volumes 20 through 28, and I think up to like volume 22 I actually, just read while I was in the tub when, I had the time and everything, just wanted to relax. So I read a manga. But these, and I'm not sure which one of these, but one of these actually got my first 4 stars on this series. I'm just not sure which one it was right now. I had to look online to figure that out. This is the tournament arc, or at least part of it. It's the semifinals and the finals, I believe. I think this is actually like the ending of the semifinals. Yeah, it's the ending of the semifinals and into the finals of the, I can't remember what tournament it is because I just got done watching Kokoro's basketball, and that was the spring and winter tournament. I don't know, really. I think this was, it wasn't called the Nationals. No, they're going to Nationals. Whatever. It's the tournament right before they go to Nationals. And they took on Rikaide, I believe is what the school is called. And once I started it, I couldn't stop reading it, especially I think it's like volume 24, 25. It was slightly different than how it's done in the anime. No, it was before that. In the video I just recorded, I mentioned that, but actually now I think it was around volume 20 where the manga was slightly different than the anime, and it blew my mind. I don't know why. But I love the changes it made, so I kept reading and reading and reading, and that's how all of this happened. Because after I finished one of the volumes, I think I read like 6 or 7 more volumes until that tournament arc was over. And I'm not 100% sure where this one ended. Oh, now I do. It ended with us meeting Kentaro. I love him so much, and this boy is scary strong. I would not want to upset him, ever. But yeah, I've gotten that far into this, and I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen in the next few volumes. I'm kind of afraid because I have 14 more volumes left, I think. It's either 13 or 14 more volumes. I'm doing the math off the top of my head. I don't know. Oh, 28, so yeah, we got 14 volumes left. This series, though, it's doing things to me because while I'm reading it, I'm loving the changes that I am, seeing from the anime, but at the same time, it also makes me realize that I'm going to have to read the new Prince of Tennis, and I've tried to read the new Prince of Tennis, and compared to Prince of Tennis, I'm not loving it so much. Probably because, really, I know exactly what's going to happen because I've seen the anime. I know how things are going to end at that training camp. Now, past that point, I don't know what's going to happen. But I also don't like the fact that Ryoma is going to be pitted against all of his teammates and friends. And it's just, I don't like that at all. But, Ryoma probably doesn't give a damn. So yeah, I read a lot of manga. But I also read 3 books, which I am very happy about. The first one I read was The Book Jumper by, I can't even say her name. That's her name. I don't know how to say it. I gave this book a 3.5 stars, but at the moment I'm still caught up whether it's a 3 or 3.5 stars because there were a lot of things I didn't like about the book. The main character, Amy Lennox, and I actually love the fact that her name was Linux, because that's actually a word I use in the book I'm writing, and that shocked me, and I was like, oh my god, this person's actually using a word I'm using, and it's not in the same context, so I don't really feel like I'm plagiarizing or anything, and it's a Scottish word. You know, I just picked it out of the dictionary because I was like, I need a word that's Scottish, and it's like, what would sound really intimidating but not ridiculous at the same time for what I'm using it for. And Linux was one of like the 5 I chose, and I just stuck with it because to me it sounded the best. But getting off my book and moving on to this one, Amy Lennox has this gift for book jumping that she doesn't know exists until she meets her grandmother on this island after her mom and her are trying to get away from problems they're having. I can't really say anything else without giving some form of the plot away. I did have a lot of problems with this book, like I said. The main one being there's not really a lot of explanation given about their gift, and not in the gift. Well, let's put it this way: if they took me aside, told me I had this gift, and described it in the way they described it and how to use it, I wouldn't know what the hell I was doing. I would be stumbling around in the dark trying to figure out what I was doing. Got nothing. I mean, the characters, there was like little parts where it told us that the characters were getting information about the world, the history, their gift and everything, but we the reader wasn't getting much of that. There was also not enough characters, and the majority of those characters I didn't like. I think there was like 14 characters in total, maybe. I may have counted them wrong, I don't know. But there was only like 2 characters I could even stand, and that's including the main character's mother, because the scandal that happened with her mother that led to her leaving the island in the first place, oh my god. I am still not sure how I feel about that. I'm leaning towards more, you're insane, why did you ever do that kind of mindset. I'm really trying to just not even think about it, because it's like I don't want to be judgmental just because, you know, she was a teenager and everything and fell in love, and that's how things happen, but at the same time, no, I don't even think as a teenager I would let that happen, no. Although her options were very, very limited. There was like no one her age on that island at all. Getting off of that, before my mind wanders to places it shouldn't go. Oh, but before I get off that topic, there was also no explanation on how a child would result from everything that happened with her mother. I don't understand it. There's no explanation given. There's like nothing that would lead us to believe that it would be possible. And why it's possible, why is it possible? But back to the limited amount of characters. The mystery of this book I felt was done well, but it would have been better and less easy to figure out if there had been more characters to like muck up the story and just, you know, distract us from who was actually doing what was going on. And I mean, yes, she could have just not introduced one character and it would have been like a total mystery on who was behind it, because that character wouldn't have existed to us. But at the same time, she needed to introduce that character in some way, or there would have been no ties to her towards the end. I also felt, and I hate to say this because I think everything in the book that happened was necessary for where the author was taking it, but I also kind of wish this book had been about 50 pages shorter, or at least 50 pages less boring. I'm pretty sure those are the same thing, but let's go with it. The majority of this book was so slow reading, and I loved The Forgotten Book that just came out a few months ago. I read it at the beginning of the year. I loved it so much, and I wanted to read this book, and this may have been her first book, I'm not sure, so that could be the reason that some parts of it dragged for me. I had too high hopes for this. My hopes were too high. I needed to lower them. That's what the problem was. It was still a really good book. I especially love the idea of jumping inside a book and like being able to explore. There was also a place in this book called The Margins that all book characters could just go and mingle and swap stories and just relax from their own stories, and that was a really fascinating idea. I really wish we had gotten to spend more time there. And I had something else I really loved about this story, but I can't really talk about it because that would be spoiling the ending. So let's just move on to the next book I read, which was State of Sorrow by Melinda Salisbury. And this book I gave a 4 stars. I am not going to pretend and say I love this book. The reason I gave it a 4 stars because the writing and the world building and the character development was all so well done. Everything was so well done in this book. The main problems I had, well, one was a personal problem. I didn't like the fact that the mystery was so tangled up and it was so hard to find proof against this one guy, and I know in real life that's how it is. It's just that hard to find evidence to prove someone is guilty. But at the same time, it was getting ridiculous and I hated it. And I just wanted an answer to whether her brother was actually her brother or not. And I know I didn't summarize this book, but I really don't know how to summarize this book. Without giving too much away, our main character, Sorrow, has kind of been pushed to the background her entire life because of an incident that happened before she was born. And all of this she has been okay with dealing with until the death of her grandmother. And then it's like all of the problems that she had been sheltered from have come out into the open, and now it's her turn to deal with them. And that starts by taking over for her father in ruling what is called, I guess, the Court of Tears, but at the same time, I don't think that was actually ever used, but they have it in the summary, so that's what I'm going to call it. Right before she can take over for her father, a ghost from the past makes an appearance and throws everything into turmoil. That's basically a very, very stripped rundown of what happens, because there is so much that happens in these 452 pages. And let me say, this book is way too long. I understand why it was so long, because if it wasn't so long, the world building wouldn't have been done so well. We wouldn't have known near as much as we needed to know about the politics and everything. And this is a duology. There is supposed to be a second book for this series, and I hope there is, because the way it ended, I need a second book. Hopefully one that's about 100 pages shorter, because oh my god, this book. The world building and the political stuff is already taken care of. Can we not have a book that's 400 plus pages, please? 300 plus pages is fine, just not 400. You can read from the summary that this girl's father makes everyone in her country mourn for the events of what happened at the beginning of the book. I'm not gonna give it away, but it's very blatantly said in the beginning of the book why this all happens. So you'll figure it out. Anyways, he makes the entire country mourn every day for the last 18 years. And in what world is that realistic? And it's like the rebellion doesn't happen until he's croaked. And it's like, why? He's the cause of all this. Why did you people wait? Why are you blaming her? Why? You should have done something, not waited 18 years to do it. So those are the things I didn't like about the series. And it was really a short list. I'm looking down because I have my reading journal down here and I have all the pros and cons written down. Pros, the villains were really, really well done. I really like the villains. My second point on here of pros is I love Luvian, and I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name, Luvian. But I love him, and I'm hoping for a future romance between him and Sorrow. This book was more political than I ever expected it to be, and that's kind of a positive and a negative, because even though I like the political aspects, it got too much at a certain point. It was very suspenseful. Real danger was involved, like realistic danger. And the last pro I really had written down, because I did all this off the top of my head, like as soon as I got done reading the book, but I really loved how all of the side plots, and believe me, there was plenty of side plots in this book, but they all tied together so well at the end. And it's like side plots will connect to side plots that will connect to the main story, and it's like, how did all of this actually tie together? And she did it so seamlessly, which is another reason why I gave it a 4 stars instead of the 3 stars that I was intending to give it. Because this book, seriously, until page 199, I couldn't wait for this book to end. I was trying my hardest to find an audiobook that apparently doesn't exist because I never found one. But I wanted it to end so bad. I was going to get the audiobook, actually pay for it, listen to it at double speed, and just finish the book as fast as possible. Because I wanted to know what happened. I wanted to know about, I wanted the mystery solved. because it was going to drive me crazy if it wasn't. But at the same time, I wanted it to end. And after that point, when I was 200 pages in, the book finally started to pick up traction, and I wanted to finish it, not just because I wanted it to end, but because I wanted to know what was happening. I was actually legitimately interested in it. That it was sad that it took 200 pages for me to actually get into this book. At the same time, I also had to keep in mind all the political stuff, the world building, and of course with anything political, it's going to be a snore fest at several points. And not everything is going to go the character's way, which is nice, but at the same time, it's also very, very irritating. Sorrow as a character was kind of very, very irritating, because it's like stuff that she should have just went ahead and done, she waited on, and it's like, don't wait. It's like you've learned your lesson the last 5 times, I would hope. Please just do it. Okay, now the last book I read is The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I literally read this book in 2 days. I think it was 263 pages I read in one sitting. I listened to this mainly on audiobook, and I'm glad I did, because let me start off by saying the voice actor for this audiobook, she talks incredibly slow, and that took a lot of enjoyment out of actually listening to the audiobook, especially since I was listening to this on a CD player and I didn't have anything to speed up her voice, so I had to listen to this at normal speed. But I did love the fact that she gave all the characters their own voices, like their own accents and just the way they talked, and it was very well done in that aspect. I really did enjoy that. So on the first day after I finished reading this, I had like 152 pages left, and I plowed through those last night, and I really wouldn't have stopped reading at 200 plus pages, but it was like 2 o'clock in the morning and I needed to sleep. Me reading this so fast actually caused a couple of problems that I think wouldn't be problems if I hadn't read it all at once. One of those is being the fact that it was kind of repetitive at points. You know how in books where the author has the main character think of a line of dialogue that another character said like 50 to 100 pages ago, sometime in the beginning of the book, and it's recalled at that point in the book because it ties to something that's happening. Well, that happened way too much in this book. Like I said, I think the majority of the reason for that kind of problem I had is because I had read it so fast. But at the same time, even then I think it was happening too frequently. The writing was also overly poetic at certain points, and not Gabriel's speaking, because he was kind of crazy whenever he talked anyway, so it sounded poetic. But it's just like when she was describing stuff that was happening and how Tana was feeling, it was very, very irritating because it got too poetic at points. The main character, Tana, she lives in a world where vampires exist, and some exist out in the physical world where she is, but the majority of them live in these places called cold towns. And one night after a party, she wakes up and she realizes that one of her friends, because I'm not going to give anything away, has been infected. So she takes it upon herself to save him, and is Gabriel. And she ends up saving him and Aiden, escaping from the party. They make their way to Cold Town. I think this book has taken place over a course of like a week or 2. I'm thinking it's just a week because it's very, very fast-paced book. But after they get to Cold Town, a lot of things slow down, but at the same time, things really speed up because of the course of events that are happening. You know, like I think a day or so into Cold Town. It's very hard to summarize this book without giving something away because it feels like every chapter, while some were longer than others, all of them had like major plot points that, you know, it's hard to summarize it without giving something away. I read a few reviews while I was reading this book, and 2 things stuck out to me that I didn't realize were actual problems until I finished reading. One of them was the fact that there was no real character development. We get like snippets of the past for some characters, or like what other characters are currently doing while our main characters are doing this, but besides Tana, there's no real character development. And I felt like this book could have been split into 2 books, and it could have been the same plot. It could have went in the same way it's going. but it could have been split into 2 books. That way we could have gotten more character development. The other problem with this book was that it felt rushed. And that's not something that I noticed while I was reading it, because I was already reading it at a pretty fast pace. Once I finished reading it and I actually got to thinking about it, I was like, the ending, even not just the ending, but the ending especially, was way too rushed. It was like there was no planning for anything that happened. It was just a spur of the moment thing. And while that happens in real life, and while Tana had been doing that for pretty much the entire book, so it was very believable in that aspect, the book as a whole was rushed. The ending especially was rushed, and it didn't need to be. Even with all the problems I had, it was still a good book, and it was still incredibly fast paced. I am up in the air on whether I wanted to give it a 3 or a 3.5 stars, but at the moment I'm leaning more towards a 3 stars. So these are the books I read. I would hold up the manga, but I need an extra arm to do that, so I'm just gonna hold up the books, and yay, books! But I'm actually happy that I got all these read. I've been meaning to read The Coldest Girl in Cold Town for so long. State of Sorrow has been on my TBR for a couple of months now, and then The Book Jumper is something I planned to read for Booktubeathon but just never got to, and I was determined to read it. But yeah, that's my 4th wrap up for the year. These are the books that I read in 2014 so far. Number 4. I'm dog sitting next week and I go on vacation the week after, so I'm hoping to read a whole lot more books, so hopefully I'll have another wrap up soon. But yeah, if you guys have read any of the books I mentioned in this video, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments below. I know there have been a lot of mixed feelings about The Coldest Girl in Cold Town and State of Sorrow especially. I didn't really read any reviews on The Book Jumper, but I know that these books in particular, a lot of people were like mixed on them, because a lot of people didn't like the politicalness of this book, and then other people didn't like the lack of character development and the rushed feeling of this book. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below about any of the books I mentioned. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!